Is our pledge.
Maybe I'll turn it on.
We got you. I think it's active now.
Members of the board, Ms. Cordell, thanks so much for having the high school out tonight to say the pledge. I have Aaliyah Book with us tonight. She is a senior at Lovejoy High School. She is a band major, drum major, all-state alto saxophone player, and a leader in numerous extracurricular activities. And so here she is to say the pledges.
Awesome. Oh, join us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate that. All right, let the roll reflect that Marvin Bobo was absent tonight. He's under the weather, so we hope he feels better quickly, and all other board members were present. So we'll begin the evening tonight with public comments related to agenda items.
Please step up. It's regarding legislative advocacy priorities.
Ms. Campbell, as you know, we have rules around public comments, but for the public, you have 3 minutes to speak. We don't interact and engage back and forth. We're here to hear what you have to say about it. Just know that you can't do not disrupt a meeting by verbal utterance or engaging directly or indirectly. And if so, we will warn you one time and then have you removed. So with that, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to address the legislative agenda, the number 14 on the list on the agenda tonight. So reading through them, you asked for some feedback, and when I look at them and the things that I have spoken with our reps before, I am in total agreement with all of the things that are on there. I feel like all of those things are priorities. I don't know that you can take any one of them off of there. My only suggestion would be that maybe add a dollar amount to the priorities so that people can see what it actually translates to in real dollars. Like tonight, you're going to be talking about our attendance and the number that we are seeing there, like over $500,000 that we're losing for absentees. If we were funded based on enrollment versus attendance, it would make a big difference for our school district. So maybe if people saw the dollar amount or an estimated dollar amount, it would help them see how important it is and how just one piece of the puzzle we could advocate for could make a big difference. So, and the other thing that I thought of was just to help get our silver leopards involved, because maybe they can do a letter writing campaign for us or something. And then our student engagement. When I've testified in Austin before, the biggest impact comes from student testimony, and that all eyes are on them. They ask them questions and they make a huge impact. I think it would be a great opportunity for our students to be involved in the process of advocating for themselves and learning how the process works in government. So those are just really, I think that was really it. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was it. All right, perfect. Thank you for those comments tonight. Item 6 is our invocation. And if you would, just please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, so grateful to be here in service tonight. Lord, we pray humbly that you would be with us in our hearts and minds, be with those that couldn't be here. Lord, lay your hands upon our families and our children to keep them safe, watch over them during this holiday season. And just bless these conversations, Lord, with your will, and let us be filled up with the joy and the spirit of the holiday season. Bless our conversations, watch over us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right. Item 7, board notifications. You have those this evening. Any comments? All right. That's item 7A, new hires, and 7B, resignation. Those are in your board book. Item 8 to 9 is our consent agenda. Are there any items that the board would like to pull from the consent agenda for review tonight? If there are none, I'd consider an action.
May we approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Amy Smith,
Second.
second Ann Smith. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9 is the presentation of our celebration of learning. Dr. Tinsley, sorry,
It's
lost
okay.
my words.
That's all right. Thank you. Well, we have the honor tonight of having our first grade team from Hart here, and the focus is going to be on math. And we have 4 of our teachers. The 4 teachers are here are Stephanie Metters, Cindy Balmer, Sarah Moody, and Ashley Papania. Or Ashley's not here tonight, but everybody else is. And we also have some of our students, our first grade students, that are going to share with you what the math instructional block looks like in the first grade classroom. And I believe you're also going to be engaged in some math activities too. So just put your math game on as we get started here. So we want to welcome our first grade team. I got it. Yep.
Well, good evening. My name is Wendy Kraft, and it's the honor to serve as Hart Elementary Principal. And I am so grateful and honored to introduce these amazing ladies. We have Sarah Moody, Stephanie Metters, and Cindy Balmer. And like Miss Balmer said, Dr. Tinsley said, is that Miss Papania is home celebrating with her little baby boy that was born recently. So we're excited for her as well. But tonight we're really going to talk to you about our math instructional block. One of our things was really about tier 1 instruction, and through our professional learning committees, we really talked about collaboration and utilizing our data and really looking at ways for us to enhance that time that we have with our students. And so tonight you're going to get a little sneak peek at a day in the life of a first grade math instruction block. So we're excited about our math workshop, and these ladies do an amazing job each and every day, really incorporating the data they learn from their students and then differentiating to meet all of their needs. And so we're going to turn it over to them.
Yep. Sorry, I can't stand behind a podium. We're used to teaching these little ones. So thank y'all for having us. We are a little nervous, mainly because we're used to we can talk to little ones and teach little ones all day. I've taught some of your kids actually, but getting in front of adults is a little bit different for us. So, but we do appreciate y'all having us. We wanted to start just by talking to you a little bit about what does our math block, our math time in first grade, and that's really a kinder, first, second math block look like in a day of our life in first grade. So you can see here, this is like a big wheel, and each slot represents one of the portions of our math workshop that we do every single day. And you can tell that some are bigger than others, and that just kind of tells you how much time we spend on each of those. So in just a little bit, Miss Metters is going to give you a little bit of a presentation of what number sense and building fact fluency looks like. So the number sense is usually about just a quick 5-10 minute routine that we do every single day. This is really having the kids stretch their thinking, and really you'll see that it's mainly just like a mental math. It's not paper and pencil in hand. It's just showing numbers or showing items, and they're just mentally thinking about math. The teachers usually have a handful of things that they grab from. So it is routine. So like maybe on Tuesdays, we have the same number sense routine every Tuesday that the kids look at, just with different numbers, different things like that. So that's a quick, just little warm up that we do. Building fact fluency is another quick daily routine that we do. And this is more about the kids learning addition and subtraction, and really just knowing about place value and how that place value works and how you can use that in doing addition and subtraction problems. And again, Miss Metters will show you, Miss Balmer is going to show you a little bit of fact fluency and how that works in the first grade classroom. And then we have this bigger chunk here that is the focused lesson. So this is a specific, we have a standard that we want to teach you, and this is our focus for the week, for the day. Here's a specific standard, and it's kind of like the sit and get that we might have gotten when we were younger. So it's more of a direct teach. We're direct teaching the kids, this is the standard, this is what we want you to learn. And then they will have in that time some time where they can maybe practice with a partner or they can turn to each other and talk about what they learned and work on their thinking. I'm going to come back to this reflection, but you can see those are just little increments of time. The biggest part of our math block is very different from when most of us were growing up. It's not a sit and get time. It is our learning station time, where we are now having the kids go out and practice something that we've already taught them. So it might be some standards from today that we taught you. It might be some standards from last week that we taught you, but now they're going out and either independently with a buddy, with a group, practicing those in some type of station, a game or something like that. Within that learning station time, though, that allows the teacher to pull at least 2 or 3 small groups based on what that small group needs in their learning in math. So the students are out working and practicing with their partners, something that they already are able to do. And we're pulling small groups. This small group might be learning something totally different than this small group, or working on something because that's what they need, just depending on what we've seen from the last few weeks that they're learning. And then we also have at the end a reflection time. So, and I will say too, that reflection is usually at the end, but these things can go in different orders. Sometimes we'll start with the number sense, we'll do the focus lesson, do the learning stations, and then pop back to the fact fluency. But at the end, we always have a reflection time where the kids come back together. We talk about what we learned for the day, maybe make some connections, maybe show some of the kids' work, and maybe show, oh, this kid thought this way and got to the answer. This kid thought another way and got to the answer. So that's the reflection time at the end that we have. So anytime that you want to come into first grade math, you're going to see one of these things going on. And you're welcome to come anytime. We would love for you to visit our class during our math block, but this is what we do on a daily basis every day. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Matters, and she's going to work with some of our kids.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so tonight we actually have 3 first graders here with us that we're super excited about. So we have Colton, Amelia, and Jude, if you guys want to come on down. These are students from each of our 3 classrooms, and we're so excited that they're here. Go to the next slide. You can just have a seat for now. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be spotlighting one of our number sense routines. And like Miss Moody said, these are a routine that we go through daily. It's not the same routine every single day, but they are very purposely picked out. We look at what we're learning, where we're at in the place value system, or where we're at in the standards, and we pick a number talk or number sense routine that would fit with that. Something that we love about our number talks is that they're not always for the kids to have a right answer, or, oh, they answered this way and that's incorrect. This is really a time for the kids that we allow them to really think flexibly about numbers, and what one kid might say might be totally different than what another child might say. But one thing that we really encourage during this time is to not only think of what their answer is, but to be able to talk about why and give their justification behind that, which we think is like a lifelong skill for them to have as well. So tonight, we only have 3 first graders here, so I thought y'all could kind of fill in and do the activity with them. Y'all ready for it? So our activity that we're going to do tonight is called a which one does not belong. And this is an activity that these 3 are very used to. So I'll give you the directions first before we begin. There are 4 pictures on the screen, and it's going to be your job and y'all's job to look at those 4 pictures and pick one that you think does not belong. But you don't just get to decide which one you don't think belongs. You also have to be able to tell me why, or tell a group why, in just a minute. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds if you want to come out so you can see the screen. I'm going to give you about 45 seconds. See if you can decide which one you think does not belong. And to tell me you're ready, you can put your finger on your nose. They're ready. Look at them. But remember, you can't just pick one. You have to be able to tell why. Gotta be able to tell why. I'm looking. Yeah, oh yeah, y'all are in this. Finger on your nose.
Okay. All the contestants are ready. Okay, so now instead of we can take this different routes in our classroom. Sometimes we have kids turn and talk and tell their shoulder partner which one they think doesn't belong and why. But one strategy that we love to do is a 4 corners activity. So there's 4 pictures here. So what I'm going to do in a second is I'm going to divide you guys up by which picture you thought did not belong. And when you get with your group, you're going to talk to each other about what were your reasons why you thought it did not belong. And after a little bit of time talking with your group, we're then going to, each group will share out why they thought it didn't belong in hopes that maybe their justification could convince another member of a different group why maybe their number didn't belong. Y'all ready for that? Okay, so this is something I also tell my class all the time, that just be whatever number you picked, you go with it. Just because your best friend sitting next to you picked a different picture doesn't mean you had to get up and go. You go with what you picked. So if you picked that this first picture, number 45, did not belong, will you stand up? Anybody? All right, your group will come meet right here. Okay, who picked 100? Who picked 100? Oh, okay. All right, y'all will come meet right here. Is that everybody? Oh, all right. Okay. All right, let's see if you, Amelia, which one did you think? Did you think 40? 70. All right, you're going to stand up right here. Nobody picked 40. I'll be Amelia's partner. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you're going to talk within your group about the reasons why you thought the number that you picked did not belong. Remember, it's math here, so we want some math talk going on. All right. Okay. Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, well, I agree.
That was my vote. Instead of a 10. Yes.
We said the same thing.
I got a little more.
Yeah.
I said 100 instead of a 10. If that's what you're learning.
I was also thinking that if you're going 100 miles per hour.
Yeah, pretty unsafe.
It's the illegal square.
You have to figure. You would get right. All right. Okay, y'all hold on to that. Who's going to be your spokesperson here to tell the other group? You want to do it, Colton? Yeah. Okay, so you'll tell the other group why you chose the Valentine Quantum. Okay, I think we're ready. Are we ready? Feeling good about your answer? Are you sure? They're feeling pretty good about theirs too. Are you feeling pretty good? Okay. All right. So now we're going to have each group have one spokesperson tell the other groups why they thought their answer did not belong. Let's see. You want to go first? Yeah, you do. Okay. All right. So you went, which number did you think did not belong?
70 because it was the only one that was in the 70s.
Ooh, because it was the only number in the 70s. Okay, good. All right. Who's going to be my spokesperson over here? All right.
We picked 45 because I guess it wasn't a multiplier of 10 or it didn't divide evenly when divided by 2.
Ooh, okay, 45. You can't get there by skip counting by tens. Good. Okay, I like that. All right, Colton. What did y'all think did not belong?
100
100. Why?
because it's the only one with the triple digit number.
The only one with a 3-digit number, so a number in the hundreds place.
Also an illegal speed.
Yes, very unsafe, very unsafe. That's right. Awesome. Okay, well, y'all can go back. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So really, we just wanted you guys to see that our number sense. Oh, wait, I didn't even finish it. Did anybody get convinced that maybe somebody else's number did not belong? Anybody convinced, or are you still feeling firm? Yeah, good points, right? So in these number sense routines, you guys can see that there's a variety of answers that can happen. And hopefully you also saw that within your group where you were talking, just because you picked the same thing didn't belong, you may have different reasons behind that. And so this is just an opportunity, again, for students to think flexibly about numbers and to use all that they know about math to get there. So y'all can head back to your seats.
Oh, guys, you want to stay over here? I'm going to need you again. Okay, I am in charge of the fact fluency portion. And with the fact fluency portion, it is a little different than the number talks, in the fact that we actually have a strategy that we really are trying to get the kids focused towards. And so what we do is, and this, Dr. Tinsley, if you'll kind of, I typically, and I think the other girls too, typically show the slides pretty slowly. So guys, just like in class, what I want you to do is I want you to watch the slides as they progress. And then I like to slowly go backwards. Okay, now what I want you guys to think about, and all the slides are kind of similar to this in the fact that you're asking the kids to tell you what they notice. So guys, do you want to see the slides one more time? And when you're doing that, I want you to really think about something that you notice with the numbers, okay? With the items in their numbers. So if you'll go ahead and show the slides. And I will tell you, we haven't done one quite this difficult yet. We have done some of these, but this is a little different concept than what we've taught before. We'll do this after Christmas. So, all right, guys, what are you thinking? And at this point, what I would do with our class, a lot of times we do this, is have our kids do shoulder partners, or the kids might be in groups of 4 on the rug. They might get together. They might do a rally robin, which is a Kagan activity that we do, but we kind of give them an opportunity to discuss it with each other. So guys, do you want to talk for just a second and kind of see what you might have noticed about the apples? Did you count the apples? All right, what do you think? Just show the first one, if you would. All right, let's look at the apples. What do you notice? How many do you see? Okay, you see 5. Do you see something else that might be a pattern within those apples? Jude. Okay, so notice how many apples. All right. What is something we've been working on a lot in class? We work on, it's a special way that we count. Yes. By 2s. There's another, we counted by 2s, we counted by 5s, we counted by 10s. How else might we count? 1s. How about, you said 2s. All right, go to the next slide. This is hard. All right, ladies. Okay, so how about see how many, count how many you see here? Yeah, how'd you get the total? You said you counted by 2s. You did. Yeah, what do you see with the colors? Jude? 7 and 6. What do you think, Amelia? Anybody have a clue in the audience? There is something with 1. Guys, does that help a little bit? So if we took this 1 off, what do you notice? There's 12. What do you notice about the different colored apples? They're equal. So there are how many? We have doubles. Very good. So what we were trying to get the kids to, and this was hard, as you can see, go ahead and go to the other slides, and then I think they'll go back. So if you'll notice, we have doubles and then +1. Very good. And then go to the next one. Again. Yes. Very good. Very good. So this would be a really good example of the fact fluency. And when you get to the very end where you saw the page that has all the numbers on it, this is how we would follow up the activity. So we would have the kids work together to think of a strategy and what we were, going at with the concept. And then they would play a game. So we basically would have them play a partner game. They might play this for a couple days, and then this goes into a station. And then the kids will play this in their math stations, which is part of our block.
Game, they double. So they roll a dice and then they have to double it and either choose just to double it and cover up a number, or double it plus one and cover up a number, or double it minus.
Right. They get to choose. Yeah, and they get to choose. So it goes right with the fact fluency. And we do this every day with fact fluency and follow it up with a game. So the kids they get really good at it. And they like it too, right? Yeah. So that's another part of our day, a really important, I think, fun part of the day and really beneficial. This is just some little snippets of what our day looks like. This would be what our classroom would look like during the focus lesson. The kids are going to be on the rug. You might notice that they're sitting in little groups. This is perfect opportunity for them to work in partners or work in groups of 3 or 4. This is a small group, usually 4 or 5, maybe even I noticed 6, 5 or 6 at the most. And then our learning stations are totally independent. The kids go into different parts of the classroom with different stations. And these are all activities that the kids have learned throughout the last week or 2. And so they're able to practice these skills with a friend or with a couple friends. So this is our math workshop in action. Well, thank you for having us. And thank you, kids, for coming. Moms and dads for bringing them.
Great job. All right. Item 10 tonight is our green team update. Dr. Duplessis.
Good evening. I am thrilled tonight to introduce an amazing group of people who've been doing some really direct work in the district, kind of hands-on, and really exemplify a lot of the volunteerism and just extra effort that our community puts into the schools. And we really appreciate that. I'm going to have Michelle Wilde share with you an update on what the green team has been doing.
Hi, everybody. Good news to the board. There's no quiz as part of my presentation. So I want to talk a little bit about the Green Team's mission. We have 3 main goals. We want to help the district to be more environmentally sustainable by reducing waste and increasing reuse and recycling in the district. We want to help save the district money. We're working on that right now, as a matter of fact, helping to find more efficient solutions for the district. And a very important objective is to give students an opportunity to learn and lead. And we've got some of our student leaders right here today. Green Team consists of parents, staff, and student volunteers across the district. We have executive sponsors, Mrs. Cordell, Dr. Duplessis, our executive sponsors, Trina Dunn, who is our council president, PTO council president. We have a planning committee. We have campus implementation teams that consist of staff representatives from every campus and also the environmental chairs who are PTO members. And we have an educational outreach team. So we had over 1.5 million pieces of single-use items that our district put into landfills last year. We definitely want to help improve that. Over 100,000 of them were plastic drink bottles. So that's something we're very, very focused on. So some of the things we've focused on, recycling. We rolled out a cafeteria recycling program at every campus. We have new dumpsters. You can see on the left is what the old dumpsters look like and the new dumpsters. And they have a locking mechanism, and that's very important. We've had an issue with contamination fees. Our district gets charged if we have excessive contamination. So the lock helps with that. We're also using some clear plastic bags so we can easily distinguish between the trash and the recyclables, so the recyclables end up in the right place. And we also have an improved recycling program in all of the classrooms so we can recycle more and again, reduce contamination, because if we have contamination, it can actually inhibit the entire load from being recycled. We also want to focus on reducing and reusing. So we've implemented share tables to help reduce food waste. We've added fork and spoon dispensers at the upper campuses to reduce plastic waste, also encouraging students only take it if you need it. We've implemented tray stacking that helps to reduce the trash volume by up to 2/3. And we're also encouraging to bring reusable drink bottles and food containers to again reduce the single-use waste. Okay, educational outreach. Greening with the Leopards. This is a program we did where we had our students go to the elementary schools and do reading time to educate them on things to be kinder to the environment. We've got green tips of the week. You've probably seen them in Mrs. Cordell's newsletter. We have a Green Team website. I encourage everyone to visit it. It's bit.ly LJ Green Team. And we also have a program called You've Been Spotted, Making Lovejoy Cleaner and Greener. And you can see Sydney in the lower right. I was at Sloan Creek one day and I saw her sweeping the floors and she was spotted, just really helping to make our district cleaner and greener. All right, student leadership, very important part of our program. We've got new green clubs at the high school and at Willow Springs. We're also going to be doing one at Sloan Creek. We've had various campus cleanup projects. We have students at all campuses that are helping to empty the classroom recycling bins to help take a little bit of the load off of the custodians and also to help them to lead on their campus. Student council at the high school and NJHS, NHS have also been involved to help lead projects. We've got mentoring by the upperclassmen. And I want to encourage students across the district. We have opportunities at every campus to get involved. So we had a winter clothing drive a few weeks ago. We collected over 200 warm weather items. We donated those all to community outreach. All right, next I'd like to recognize a couple of people in our district who we're calling them Greenie Awards, but these are a couple of members who have really gone above and beyond. So first, Rigo, please come up here. Rigo Valdivia. Thank you, Rigo. Rigo's our custodial supervisor, and he has just been incredible to partner with to implement our program. So thank you, Rigo, so much. We'll take a picture. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Mrs. Perez, Jennifer Perez, please come up. Jennifer is one of our amazing science teachers at Willow Springs, but really she has just been incredible. Thank you, Jen. And she's been incredible to create the gardens at Willow Springs, to maintain them and to make it a learning opportunity for students, which has just been really wonderful. She's also volunteered to be the campus rep at Willow Springs, so has really helped to implement our programs there. So thank you so much. And Lisa Wilkins. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa is a parent in our district, and she's got students. She's got students at Puster and 2 at the high school. And Lisa has really been instrumental at Puster, Sloan Creek, Willow Springs to help get the gardens initiated to beautify our district. These 2 ladies working hard on weekends to work very hard on the garden. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. We're going to take a picture. Green team, let's take a quick group picture. Come on, green team. I know. Yeah, balance like looking at. I didn't know there was an on. Okay. Yes, ready. right, so my last slide, last couple of slides, it does take a community, so I really wanted to recognize all the people, and there are others, but all the people that have been very instrumental. I have to start at the top. Mrs. Cordell has been so supportive, and Dr. Duplessis. I've came to them with lots of crazy ideas and they said yes, so I appreciate it so much. The Green Team, a lot of the planning committee is here today, so thank you all. Rigo and the custodial team has been absolutely incredible. Our PTO council, amazing. Of course, the board, thank you all for your support. The campus principals, amazing. Everything I came to them with, they said yes. So thank you so much. Our Green Team campus reps and our environmental chairs, and we've had great administrative support. So thank you so much. Communications team and Matt McCarty and the nutrition team, and of course, all the amazing people in the community that have supported us. So thank you all so much for that. Learn more about the Green Team, help us to do more. We do not receive any funding from the district, so everything we've done is from money that we've raised us through sponsorship or donation. So please help us to do more. I wanted to say a quick thank you to our sponsors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. Item 11 tonight is a presentation on the STAR redesign. Dr. Tinsley.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Mary Mullen, our Director of Secondary Education and Assessment and Accountability. She'll be co-presenting with me tonight on the STAR redesign. If you recall last month when we were talking about the need for some updated technology devices, a lot of that is the result of what we're needing to have for our the changes in the direction the STAR test is moving. So this was a result of the of House Bill 3906 that was passed by the 86th legislature in 2019, and the redesign will be implemented this school year, this spring. So we are gearing up for that at this time. And so some of the components within the redesign, online testing and accommodations across the board, with the exception of some students that may need different accommodations. There are going to be some new question types that our students are going to be exposed to. Cross-curricular passages, that is what you're going to hear more from Mary on how that's assessed in the various content areas, and then evidence-based writing, which we have been doing some significant work with our teachers on to support students in the classroom with that. So again, this is as a result of the last legislative session, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mullen so she can provide more details for you.
Thank you, Dr. Tinsley. Good evening, board and community members. As Dr. Tinsley said, we have a new redesign that is going to start this spring. The 4 components she already mentioned, I will elaborate a bit upon. The first one, the online testing and accommodations, as she said, we are moving totally to online testing. It was decided actually and at the 87th Texas legislature in 2021 that this school year all tests administered from the state must be taken online. Well, we found this out a couple years in advance. So actually last year we did all of our state testing online already, all grade 3 through EOC 2 in language arts. So our students have had practice in this area already. There are benefits to online testing. A couple are mentioned here. You'll see we are supposed to get faster test results back. There's improvement in test operations. We are now open to be able to offer more than just multiple choice questions on assessments. In addition to that, is there a click? Just click here. Okay, thanks. There are a lot more accessibility tools and accommodations available online, you might imagine. The 2 columns are in the blue-green over here. Those are accessibility tools that are available to all students. There's no special criteria. you might look at that list and say, oh, that makes sense. There's sticky notes available. There's highlighters. These would be things that we would have used with paper tests, right? So those are available. You'll see in the middle column, there's dictionaries available online, or they can use a hard copy, whatever students are more comfortable with. You'll see some things that pertain just to science, some just to math. And at the bottom, there's an online calculator, or they can still use handheld calculators. The column way over on the right, those are designated supports. And what that means that a 504 committee or our committee must approve or agree that the student needs these supports. And it wouldn't be something that would be kind of out of the blue. It'd be something the student is used to using and needs for testing throughout the school year, instructional practices. So it's not something new for the test day. Thank you. Right here is a sample of one of the new question types. You'll see it's not multiple choice. It's well, the state is calling it a text entry, but it's kind of like a fill in a blank with numbers. You'll see that there's almost a calculator setting there for the students to enter the number in. For other this is math. For other content areas, it might be a word to type in. So it's open-ended. They enter it. There's no guessing here at all. They have to have the right answer. So this would be an example of how students might be asked questions in the classroom, more open-ended. And that's really what the state is getting at, so that we are administering an assessment that looks more like what is happening in the classroom. Here is an entire list of the 14 different question types. It's kind of small print out there, but I'll explain just a little bit here. Over on the left is the question type. The center is a description, and at the far right, you'll see the different content areas and grade levels where you might see that question type. So the first one, equation editor, you're not going to see that in anything but math, which makes sense. But the second one down, that text entry, which we just saw, you'll see in math in grades 3-8 and EOC, reading starting in 6th grade, and then only in science grade 8. Okay, so it's very specific where we might see these different question types. And you can see they're very open-ended. Some are question types, and some of them you're looking at, oh, that really sounds like a tool. And in some cases, it is a tool, like the graphing. It's great. Now the students actually can put points on and draw lines and that type of thing, where you can't do that with a paper test as well because of grading. It's very difficult to grade a paper test. You have to grade them all by hand if you're looking at a student who put the graphing in themselves. The third component is the cross-curricular passages. There will be an increase in the number of informal passages. And as you can see, it's not just going to be reading passages, but the different subject areas will be incorporated from social studies, science, math, fine arts, could be about PE, any of the other content areas that the student is exposed to throughout that grade level. The one thing that I do want to mention here in the bottom, it says these questions aren't testing that content from science or social studies. It's only testing RLA standards or the text for that area. And here might be an example of a STAR passage that has to do with the science that a student may be learning, but it will be tested in reading. And then there's a piece of the passage there that's then the entire passage. And at the bottom is one of the questions that might be answered. And it's one of the new types. It's actually called a multi-select question, where the student has to identify 2 correct answers. The last component, it's evidence-based writing. And what that is in the past, writing was only tested in 4th and 7th grade. Now writing will be tested grade 3 through 8 and of course, English 1 and English 2. So throughout all grade levels, writing will be tested. And instead of having a stand-alone prompt like describe the best day you ever had might be the prompt. Now they will read a short passage and respond to it. And that's much more like you might see in the classroom. Again, this is what the state is trying to pull through. There are only 3 different types of modes: informational, argumentative, and correspondence. We already know what the rubrics look like. They're online. Anybody can see them. And for that matter, all the sample questions are posted online and we can view them. We know kind of what they look like. And the last thing, the rubrics will have 2 main components. One is about idea development and the other is about language conventions such as grammar, spelling, and that type of thing. What have the steps that we have been taking as a district? As I said, the online testing has been happening in our district for quite a while. Our campuses use a digital assessment platform that we've had in the district for a while for their own unit assessments. The district enters all of our benchmark assessments and semester exams at that same platform. The platform we use has been keeping up with the state's improvements. So it should be somewhat of a smooth transition because the students have seen this before. Our C&I team coordinators have created scavenger hunts for the kids to get on practice tests from the state and go in and practice some of the tools. So they're used to it and they know or have an idea how they work. As I said, last year, we already went online with all of our testing district-wide. And the state also has other assessment opportunities for districts that are optional. One of them is an interim assessment that we are looking at maybe having a couple grade levels use, but we're still collaborating on that. As far as training concerns, we've had training at the district campus and then all the way down to the team level already, learning at Lovejoy for the last 2 years. Last year and the previous year, the C&I team have presented district-wide on this change to the assessment program. And also at the beginning of the school year, we have what we call Academy Week, where we have prep teachers on the new assessment types and the movement there. And our coordinators do meet with our teachers during their team planning to plan out assessments and make sure we are covering everything so that there are no surprises for our students and we can guarantee success. Any questions for me?
Is there any reason to, how do I want to ask? What else do we need to be doing to be ready for this so that kids and parents aren't surprised, or are there other tools you need to help prepare us for this transition?
Most of it, I think, is practice. It's exposure practice for the teacher. So they know what it looks like. And so if a student doesn't know how to use a tool, they're able to help them. And it's just students' exposure. They're not afraid to push buttons and do things and move things around like we are, or I'm going to speak for myself like I am. So they're pretty comfortable with it. Yeah, you'd be kind of surprised even.
Surprises through the kind of preliminary practice we've been doing already, or things that?
Well, one thing is the students have opportunities to get 1 or 2 points in some questions. So a little bit of a surprise on how they're scoring, but we do have all that information now and we're aware of that. And the teachers are aware of the scoring and the state has been producing webinars and having meetings and that type of thing to keep us up to date.
Elaborate. So scoring is not as good as what we have been to prior expectations, or what do you mean by surprises on the score?
The scoring as in what it takes to earn 2 points on a correct question. For instance, something that was somewhat new was that when we have a passage that has a 2-part question, they can get, if they must get question A correct in order to get B correct, because what it is A asks the question about the content and B says, explain why you picked that or find it in the passage. So if A is incorrect, B is automatic. You can see how that's automatic correct. That was a little bit of a surprise, but we
So
know
that's
that
just
now. And
getting used to how
Yeah,
things are
yeah,
asked and
it's
the
just a little-
logistics of the
Mhm.
testing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've addressed the technology needs. Everything else we're on track for?
Yes, and the state is offering some interim assessments. When we have looked at what they're offering, we feel like what we have developed here is comparable to that. So, and there's some not the challenges, but some stipulations you have to follow under if you do sign up for those interim assessments. So, and again, we want to really honor to make sure we're not taking instructional time away when we're spending days testing. So it really, we're monitoring our student progress, and if our student data shows us that our students are doing okay, then we feel like the one that we are kind of really looking as a possibility might be social studies, just because of that's an area that we knew was an area we wanted to grow.
Our online testing platform that we have had in the district for quite a while is really has done a great job keeping up, and we can easily create I shouldn't say easily, but we can create assessments that align pretty well to what the state will be using for tools.
Is the state gonna offer any kind of grace in their grading this year to
Well,
allow people to
yeah.
ramp up to the standard?
That's a great question. We were LEAs were supposed to be advised of what the new targets and cutoff points were going to be in November, and they've pushed it back now to January. So those have not been released yet. We have been told that the difficulty level won't change at all. So what was expected for approaches will be the same level of expectation this year for approaches and so on.
For students who receive special education services, have we noticed any difference between their progress in terms of typing a paper test versus an online test, or have we had to implement any new processes to prepare them?
Nancy, you want to talk about what we're doing for our campuses, for preparing our staff when they're making those decisions about support for students?
Absolutely. To answer your first question, really, we've not, although there's some new sample question types that will be new information for us to gather. There will be opportunities for them to practice using the online practice piece. One of the things that we're continuing to refine with the campuses is looking at the data where a student's performing and narrowing that down and being very laser-like with the accommodations that we're putting in place. And really the data that's happening, Mary talked about the accommodation wouldn't be something you would just use on STAR. It would be something that would be routinely and effectively used. So that data is ongoing on how a student's responding. Probably we have the closest that helps mirror what we know right now is a program called AWARE, where a lot of our benchmarks and district-made tests are in. So students have the opportunity to perform in that platform based on what we know right now.
Any other questions? Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
you.
All right, item 12 is a presentation on our attendance task force. Mr. Parker.
Good evening. I wanted to give you an update. If you'll remember at the beginning of the school year, we discussed, as always, we discussed attendance, but we wanted to find out how we're going to address some of the obstacles and hurdles that we have as far as getting students in our classrooms, making sure they come to school, to address maybe even some of the learning loss coming out of COVID, because we know that attendance, having kids in our seats, that is the number one factor in making sure that students learn. And also too, it's how we're funded, right? And so we wanted to make sure that we put some heads in the room from different aspects. So this committee or task force is consisted of students, high school students. It consists of parents from all different levels. It consists of teachers from all different levels and also administrators from all different levels as well. And I just wanted to, again, give you a recap of the first two. We're going to have two more in the fall. We're having a meeting each quarter. The first one took place on October 3rd. And the agenda was really, what are the ways that we take attendance? Why do we take attendance? What are the requirements? And we reviewed those because it's confusing. People think we always hear, have your kids at school at 10 o'clock in the morning. And that's the way we take attendance. And it is, it's one, but that's only one of the three ways that we take attendance. And the one that I just mentioned is referred to as average daily attendance. And it is the one that is the primary driver in how we get funded each and every year for our schools. And so again, we asked students and parents to have their students at school each day at 10 o'clock in the morning. And this gives us the average daily attendance. In this case, there are no excused or unexcused absences. You're either absent or you're not. However, if you can recall in some of my prior presentations, you can get credit for a student being absent at 10 o'clock on those days if you have a doctor's note and they were there at some portion of the day. We can get funding for those days. Again, that doesn't make up for any of the learning loss. That's just the funding that we receive. So obviously, as you know, we can't make up for any learning loss when students are not in the classroom. That's why we need to have them there each and every day. The second way that one of the other two ways that we take attendance is compulsory attendance. This is the one this is the legal requirement. So each of these ways that we take attendance, there's different purposes. The first one being funding. This one is the legal requirement that we have to have students in our classrooms to learn. This is the one where if a parent may receive a 3-day letter from the district, they may receive a 6-day letter, and they may receive a 10-day letter. The 3-day letter and the 10-day letter are really the requirements of the state. The 6-day letter is something that we do as a district. The state recommends something in between the 3-day and the 3-day and the 10-day, and we've chosen a 6-day letter to make sure that there's like a midway point in between the two. Once a student hits the 10-day, the 10 absences, we are required to do something, and that something is something like an intervention plan, a behavior plan, to have a plan put in place so parents are aware, so students are aware, and we can start changing the behavior of the student being absent so consistently. And then finally, the 90% rule. This is the one where students, this one addresses learning. And the state says that students have to be in the classroom 90% of the time. So that's roughly 18 absences per year. If we have 187 days in the classroom, it's 18 to 19 absences per year. This is K-12. This is not just high school students. So if a student is not in their classroom 90% of the time, they are not supposed to get credit for being in that class. So just hypothetically, there are a lot of steps, first of all, that we would take before we would not allow a student to get credit. Hypothetically, a kindergarten has 25 absences, they can't move on to first grade. In that case, if a student is approaching those that 90% rule, we again would have meetings with the parent. There is an attendance committee on at the campus level, and they look at the reasons why this student has been absent. Has this student been hospitalized for a sickness? If that's the case, we're obviously not going to hold that against the student, but we also are going to look at opportunities that we can make up learning that student has missed because of all the absences that they've accrued. And a lot of that is just simply seat time. And so we allow each campus to come up with a system or come up with a way that they can make up some of that learning loss, some of that seat time, and then they will also recoup some of the time that they've missed. And so all of that is at the campus level as far as being able to recoup some of those times. But those are the three different ways that we looked at in that first October meeting with this task force. The second meeting occurred just a few weeks ago, or last week actually, on December 5th. We reviewed how we take attendance, and then we looked at some of the attendance data. So we were further along in the school year, to know what trends have we seen so far this school year. And really just a few of those came out, and I'll show you a couple of those trends in just a second. I do want to mention that TEA provides us with a student attendance accounting handbook. If you ever are just really dying to find out more information about attendance, please Google the student attendance handbook. You can keep it on your coffee table at home, pick it up whenever you would like to read it. anything you want to know about attendance, it's in that student attendance accounting handbook. But we really looked at the trends in Lovejoy so far this year. And we came up with two trends, and we always want to look at Lovejoy High School. And I hate to point that out, Dr. Zambezi, but Lovejoy High School students and high school students in general, they have the luxury of mobility. They have transportation. They have maybe not to come to work, come to school as often as their younger counterparts. So we always want to look at what is the trend of Lovejoy High School students or high school students in general. And what we found are two of the trends as far as K-12, one of them being Friday attendance. And if you'll see here, we took all of our Fridays and our district average on Friday, our attendance was, our ADA was 94.65. So on Fridays alone, our attendance average is 94.65. Currently in the district as a whole, our average daily attendance is 95.83. So you can see we're more than a percentage point below the district average. And I think Dr. Duplessis said 1 percentage point is worth about $150,000. And so you can see just on average, again, on Fridays, it's over 1 percentage point. Just on Fridays alone, we've had 3,420 absences this year, and we've lost $153,922 just on Fridays this year. In Lovejoy High School, you can see their attendance on Fridays is 93.92. So Fridays are hurting us. We don't know. I will tell you that, it's kind of an ebb and flow with illnesses and sicknesses. So we know that does play a part in it, but just coming to school also plays a part in it as well. The second trend is the day before holidays. We've only had so far we're about to have another one. But so far this semester, we've had 4 holidays to where we have had, we took the average daily attendance, and you can see our district average on the day before we have an extended holiday was 92.32. And that's not good. That's a pretty low number. You can see our Lovejoy High School average is 91.63. The days before holidays, we've had 1,000, just on those 4 days, we've had 1,303 absences, and we've lost almost $60,000 just on those 4 days. That's crippling to a school district that every penny counts, every dollar counts for us. And you can see just some more numbers here. This was as of last week on the 6th of December. Our current enrollment, if you'll remember, we were budgeted this year off of 4,210 students. So as far as enrollment, we're looking pretty good. We have almost 15 students more than what we budgeted for. We're at 4,224. Actually, that was on the 6th. As of today, we've gained another student, so we're at 4,225. Our year-to-date ADA for the district is 95.84. You can see the numbers there. We've lost over $560,000 of funding just for absences for our ADA, and that's broken down by 6 weeks. You can see, obviously, we start strong. Everybody's excited about getting to school first 6 weeks, and then we start dwindling as far as our ADA. For whatever reason, our second 6 weeks was even a little bit lower than our third 6 weeks. We were down to 95.1, we're back up to 96. So that is encouraging that we're coming back up in the third 6 weeks. But we lost that second 6 weeks, we really took a hit, lost over $260,000 just for our second 6 weeks numbers. So then we find out, what do we do about it, right? And those are the conversations in the task force that we're going to continue to have. It's conversations and ideas and thinking that we're going to really focus our attention on in the upcoming meetings. But some of the suggestions that they've had so far are really 3 main ones that came out. They had a lot of great ideas, but really it came down to these 3. The first one is the numbers that you just saw. Numbers mean a lot more than we really need you to get your child to school on Fridays or just on a daily basis. So what we will start doing is providing a template to the principals, putting a template in Ms. Cordell's weekly emails, letting parents know how much money are we losing, how many absences we have on a daily basis. We also are going to have, and principals have already been doing this. We have to make sure that we're holding students and parents accountable to the truancy meetings. If a student reaches 10 absences, we need to have that truancy meeting. We have to have a behavior plan in place. But the one that really gets people's attention, because if I have a junior who needs, I don't know, a geometry credit or a pre-cal credit, and they're not at school 90% of the time, and you tell them, we have to increase your attendance rate. Otherwise, you have to retake this course. It doesn't matter if you make an A in the course. If you're not there a certain percentage of the time, you have to retake this course. You don't get credit for it. That tends to get the kids' attention. That gets the parents' attention as well, because it's going to impact their graduation. It's going to impact them going to college. So we never want to do that, but we also want to let them know what the ramifications are if their kids aren't coming to school. Any questions on that? And we'll have more as we go through the year. Is there another? Yes, we'll have one each quarter. So we'll have one in the third quarter when we come back, probably about middle of the third quarter, and then we'll have one about middle of the fourth quarter.
I know we've made some changes at the high school this year, and at times had a parking lot monitor, things like that. Are those things helping? Can you tell? Or
I think they are. I will tell you this, just going in, and Dr. Zambezi may have more to add to it, but if you walk into the high school now, it's different in the fact that kids are walking with a little bit more urgency to get to class. The expectation, I think, is different. And you can see the kids responding to that. There's not as much, there's just more urgency to get to class. I think that's the best way to say it. Yes, ma'am.
Has there been a thought to do something, this is the flip of the other stages that you mentioned, to reward a high school student for being there on a Friday, the day before Thanksgiving or the day before the long break? Those 2 days were the huge hits, right? I know we don't give extra credit. I know we've changed some of the retests. Maybe you throw out a wild card and, hey, you were here, so guess what you get to have? And that word gets out that, I don't know, I'm just thinking if there's some reason to incentivize them to come.
Yes.
Aside from just the docking, I don't know. You probably thought of it.
There's a little bit of a gray area as far as what you incentivize them with. One of the suggestions was to ensure that teachers are doing worthwhile and quality instruction on the day before. Sometimes when you know that students are not going to be there, you may not do something that is so focused on learning because you don't want kids to get behind. You don't have to make up half the class, right? However, if you put lessons in the lesson plan the day before a holiday or even on Fridays, just to make sure that the learning is not slowing down, just because you anticipate kids being gone, that might start moving the needle in a different direction.
Cool.
There were some pretty outlandish ideas. We got the whole spectrum of ideas, some of them pretty aggressive.
Well, I remember at Lovejoy Elementary, when I was the PTA president, we would have I think we called it Leopard Live. Patty Jackson had the big celebration.
Yeah.
You remember this, Jason, the Friday before a break. Nobody wanted to miss that. Their kid was getting an award, so they were at school.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how it's trickier with the high school.
And I would say that there's some pretty strategic things that are put, especially at the elementary K-8. K-8, you could even, competition is still pretty healthy. They still care about some competition. Again, the high school is just a different business.
I know, for sure. Well, thank y'all for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Item 13 will be our budget workshop. This is our second, right? Dr. DePlessis, budget workshop.
All right. Good evening. As Mr. Owens mentioned, this is our second budget workshop. We're holding these at every regular board meeting in preparation for the 23-24 budget, as we did last year. And so I'll be sharing some brief information on the budget as a whole, and then Dr. Tinsley is going to share some additional information on items that we are reviewing and analyzing. So today's goals, again, is to continue the development process around this, looking at projections and updates and answer any questions. We are continuing our build out of our Little Red Schoolhouse under the pillars of legacy of excellence, future ready students, and financial sustainability. So we're kind of roughing in some of the internal portions of what we started in reframing our story last year. Everything we do is going to be developed around retaining the budget priorities that have been set by the board last year. Focusing on fund balance and a 3 to 5 year plan to achieve 90 days of fund balance in order to provide financial sustainability to the district and to support number 2, which is compensation. And we also focus on attendance, as you just heard from Mr. Parker, as we look at ways to not only enhance learning, but the funding mechanism, and lastly, enrollment, of course. So these priorities will be achieved through zero-based budgeting, looking at staffing guidelines. As you heard last month, we'll also be looking at a capital planning committee so that we're also looking at our long-term objectives as well as our annual general fund budget. And we'll also be doing program reviews, continuing to look at all of the programs that we provide in the district and how we can make them most effective and efficient. So the projection that you have before you this evening is essentially the same as last month. So if it looked the same, it's not a trick. We had our last board meeting about 2 weeks ago. So there haven't been substantial enough changes, but just to revisit where we were, we have had a increase in Lovejoy Scholar enrollment this year that has benefited us. And of course, is a good thing. We did change the budget and remove the VA TRE revenue potential there. We did talk about the grant recognition for the Lovejoy Child Development Center and recognizing that in current year. And so some other things that have changed is a slight increase in recapture due to ASF funding projected by the state, and a slight increase in interest income as a result of the current interest rate market. Available school fund. It's the kind of sister to the permanent school fund. The smaller sister. So the projection assumptions that we've continued to just kind of want to reiterate that are baked into this projection are kind of those placeholders that we have here. Again, this is holding that 42 or the 4210 projected enrollment. As Mr. Parker mentioned, it's fluctuating slightly to about 8 to 10 students based on that, but we are so very close. We are also closely watching our attendance rate. We base the current year budget on 95.5%. So some of the information Mr. Parker shared on, funding availability that we lost this year based on days not in attendance, were really compared to 100%, the total potential of what we could have, not necessarily the budget, just for clarification purposes on that item. So for the first 6 weeks, we did have an actual attendance rate of 97.1%, but we do have a comparison here shortly to share with you on prior years compared to this year. And this projection continues to assume an 8% property value growth, which has been kind of a traditional norm in this district. And it just has that placeholder, remember, of a 2% payroll increase in the next couple of years in this forecast. So this is where we are, and we shared this last month as well, but looking at ending our current year to the positive of a little over $1.8 million and 112 days of fund balance, which is a great position to be in and compared to where we were this time last year. However, because that ADA, as was pointed out earlier, is such a driver to our financial formula, because of the projections on our ADA, which is driven by our enrollment, we still see that significant difference in our fund balance in three years, ending at a $1.9 million deficit and 76 days of operating expense and fund balance. So these are the attendance trends I was speaking of. So if you'll look at where we were for the first 6 weeks, some of us who had this hazy memory of what the last 6 weeks were of last school year, 97.1 sounded good. But as you can see from the prior years that are indicated here, it's a little bit lower than what we have achieved in some of the prior years. The second 6 weeks being at 95.1%. And again, that's a bit lower than the prior years. Obviously, I think the second 6 weeks there, from what I understand, there was a fair amount of illness in the district, things like that have occurred. So that might be some of that. And you'll also see that some of those years were excluded from attendance calculations. At the third 6 weeks, we are at 96.0%. So we're kind of getting closer to where we have been in prior years in this third 6 weeks. So we're hopeful that with some of the work of the task force that we're able to get some additional attention around the attendance trends for this year. So as we begin the work around looking at our budget for next year, there are a number of things that we evaluate. So other financial initiatives that we're looking at and investigating, I've just kind of listed here as items that we are evaluating. One of those is, of course, attendance. And we kind of shared with you some information this evening on where we are, some efforts that are being made to improve that. Also looking at scheduling. We know that scheduling is so important simply because it drives the staffing formulas that we use, which is the next item you'll see there. And staffing being the large lion's share portion of our budget has a significant impact. We also look at compensation. We've continued to evaluate that and bring forward information, or continuing to analyze, as we did last year, what our compensation rates are compared to neighboring districts doing the same work this year. Also evaluating our benefits programs, particularly the amount of district share that's paid towards employee health care. We were very fortunate last year in that the state held steady on those insurance rates, which I think is the first time I can ever recall that happening. So we're kind of keeping an eye on what some of the other districts have been doing in that area. We also want to look at the various programs, as I mentioned earlier, potential fee structures that could bring in more revenue to the district. And lastly, we did kick off our zero-based budget process again a couple of weeks ago. And so we'll start that work really in earnest when we return from the Christmas break.
Here, since we've already gone through that one time before now, is that process just doing the same thing all over again, or is there something you can refine from that?
So we hope to constantly refine what we're doing, because the zero-based budget is essentially designed to kind of wipe the slate clean and start over. And some of our administrators are new in their positions. So a couple of things, some of them have additional knowledge and experience, in their areas that they didn't have to draw from last year, or additional information or additional initiatives they want to lead for. So that's one area that can be modified. Those that kind of knew we had a couple of really, rock star people come in, they knew their budget inside and out. They knew exactly where they wanted to change things and make efficiencies. So for those folks, it'll probably be a lot quicker, but the idea is that we're evaluating all of those areas the same way.
I guess part of my question stems from my understanding of the zero-based budgeting process is it's not typically something that's done every single year, because it's somewhat of an intensive labor process and putting a lot of work on people. And then you also, at some point, we're in a situation where we have to not just wipe the slate clean and say, this is what I need, this is what I need. We have to sometimes pull back from where we are, right? And so I'm curious and would like to hear in future budgeting meetings, not just zero-based budgeting, but if we have this as a starting point of where we are, how are we going to reduce from there, not just building back to the same place again? I don't want to put people through paces of doing the same thing over again and just end up at the same place, and you're just going through cycles. So
that's the beauty of zero-based budgeting, though, right? Is you have to re-justify.
You have to just, it is a lot of work, and I don't know, I'm thinking out loud about the process and wanting to make sure that we're not just using a buzzword of zero-based budgeting to go through a process and ending right back up where we were before, and thinking outside the box as it goes to that part of it.
I think I heard you say before that the savings that we achieved last year, we have baked into this budget. So we're making sure that we don't continue to grow. And then would you assume that going back through that budgeting process, you might identify some additional places that you would be able to cut? If it makes sense?
Yes, we do think there will be some additional items identified that just were not known or were not discovered in the prior year. We also do know that there are some areas where things might have been missed, or somebody was new and didn't realize, oh, this expenditure used to come out of my budget and I didn't know. So just kind of making some of those adjustments. Our hope is nobody comes in with a request of, 2 to 4 times what they had last year. But essentially, I will also say that we provide a lot of information, we being Thomas back there, provides a template. So we actually provide a lot of historical data and budget to actual for the current year that we hope, the reason we do that is that it expedites the process, because we do know that our administrators and our principals are very busy. And our hope is that that isn't like it's not something they can just copy and paste and move forward, but it is something that's a quick, good gut check. Like, did I catch this? Is there something that we did out of this code last year that I haven't thought about? So we do try to provide some information that makes it easier.
It also provides an opportunity for some really critical conversations with supervisors and leaders about what our priorities are and how we align our resources with our priorities. And that's an important part of that planning and collaboration process as we vision towards 23-24. We also could identify areas that if we didn't have a process in place like this, that there may be areas where there's a higher cost due to inflation, or for whatever other reason, maybe there's more kids involved in that area, and it allows space and time for those thoughtful conversations. So those things hopefully don't get missed.
And so we're very much quickly trying to get all the information out and all the tools available to our staff that are budget leaders to complete that work. But we'll probably know more the latter part of January as far as how we're looking, and maybe able to provide an update. But at this point, and looking at evaluating all those areas, obviously, as I mentioned, master scheduling is a huge portion of the budget, probably one of the biggest drivers. And so Dr. Tinsley is going to share some information on items being evaluated in that area.
Thank you. The goal of a master schedule is to ensure we're meeting our kids' needs, but also with that, we want to ensure that within the schedule, the master schedule, we are ensuring teachers have time to plan and build quality lessons and prepare instruction at a high level. So when we always want to talk about our why. So when we look at master scheduling and we look at where we're looking at from a budget standpoint, number one, we're wanting to retain that legacy of excellence for all of our students here in Lovejoy ISD. You've heard us talk about this quite a bit as well. Staff and teacher retention and recruitment is just critical. The cost of when we bring new staff into the district, that is added cost because we're training, we're onboarding. But if we can retain high quality staff through our master scheduling plan, then we're winning both ways. Our kids are winning, plus financially it's rewarding for our district too. And then of course, we always have to look at responding to our revenue challenges. So when we look at master scheduling, these are kind of the three big rocks that I would say we bring forward. So just some preliminary information gathering that we've done, and I say that just conversations with principals, conversations with cabinet, hearing a little bit sometimes from our superintendent, teacher council, staff members. These are some things that we are wanting to bring forward for further study. Some of the data that we did receive and some feedback, and this really does tie back to that teacher staff recruitment and retention. And you've heard us say our greatest investment is in our teachers because they have the greatest impact on our students. Our teachers have been telling us, and we're hearing this, and this is not just a Lovejoy issue, this is nationwide with teachers. They need time. They need more time for preparation, what we're asking teachers to do to differentiate at the level. And for our students, time is not, it's not a good balance. When we look at the number of hours our teachers are working outside of the school day, it's significant. And so in turn, that affects work-life balance for our staff. As Anna has shared, and you've heard, nationally too, a significant number of teachers are leaving the field. And so talking with our campus principals, they truly believe that if we can get creative in our scheduling, that could positively impact maintaining quality teachers here in Lovejoy. So again, this is just very preliminary. So some considerations that we are wanting to do further review on. Of course, we would just look at our status quo. Right now, when I look, we're talking an 8-period day right now for Willow and for the high school. The teachers at those campuses have 2 planning periods. However, at our 2 elementary schools, they don't, but that 8 period does really not impact the Elementary or Sloan Creek. Looking more in depth, we've had 7-period day brought forth as well too. And I know that was brought forth last year, even during our financial sustainability committee as well. Those were some questions that were asked, and that would really apply directly to Willow and to high school. Also, the 4-day student school week, and what that indicates is that it's students going to school 4 days a week. It's not necessarily a teacher school week, but it might free up some time for our teachers to do some more planning and have more time in preparation for classes. Block scheduling, and then include extended planning days within the calendar. So what we're talking about with that is so looking at our calendar, students might have some holidays or days off. We would create those as teacher work days to where they would have time for planning and work in their classrooms. So just some pros and cons that just through some discussions we've had. When you look at our current scheduling model, pros is that it does, and this is what we hear a lot of feedback on, is that with the 8-period day, it does allow opportunities for students to explore pathways, more elective choices for our students. It's familiar. It would not require adjustments really at all. And is it possible? Is it an enrollment incentive for students coming in from outside of the district with those additional elective choices? Some of the cons is that we would probably see no revenue changes. Is it going to have a negative impact on retaining quality teachers and recruiting teachers? And then we're still going to have challenges with protected planning time for our teachers with our current model. 7-period day, the class periods would be extended, so you would have a longer period of time with the teacher in those periods. It could possibly be some revenue savings. The cons would be it would decrease choice. Our students would not have as many elective choices. It could compromise high school credits. I don't have details on that, but that's been some speculation too, is it could impact the number of credits that we require here in Lovejoy. It possibly could reduce the amount of planning periods for our teachers. So going from 2 planning periods to 1 planning period. And then again, a negative impact on teacher staff recruitment and retention. You're gonna find multiple reasons, the same reasons throughout several of these. Yes. And I think this is not we're going to find there'll be a lot more than just this. These were just some things that we've kind of thrown out there in conversation with our principals.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So the first model that we are currently using, one of the cons was challenge to protected planning time. Is that for the elementary, not the high school?
It would be,
Yeah.
Well, it still is. I mean, we're even here from our high school teachers. They don't have enough planning
With
time
2
too.
periods?
Mhm.
Okay.
There's still challenges with
Okay.
that. Mhm.
Okay.
I would think with most of these models, planning is still going to be an issue.
I'm just making sure I understood that right. I got that at the 7 period, but
But it would
even
be more
still at the 8.
significant at the 7-period day. Yes. So 4-day student school week, some possible pros is that it would extend the school day. If you went from a 5-day student school week to a 4-day, so the school day would be longer, so you would have more time for targeted instruction. There's a possibility it could improve teacher staff recruitment and retention. So if you've been reading in the news, there's some districts in Texas that are moving toward that. And this is a lot of if you read what's on their websites, this is what they're promoting. Those districts are, it's a recruitment tool for staff. Possible financial benefit, we don't really know. But it could be, it would increase teacher planning time. Could it improve attendance for our students and staff? So if they know they're going to have some days off during the month, could they schedule doctor's appointments or others appointments on those days rather than having to take a day off from work or kids missing school? So again, this is kind of some speculation and some preliminary thoughts. Extended school day might be an adjustment for students and staff. Childcare could be a challenge for some of our families if we don't go to school 5 days a week. And it would more than likely require changes in our transportation schedules, our busing transportation schedules.
So with some schools implementing this 4-day schedule now, are there some reasonably reliable data sets that we can compare attendance numbers to that have a similar makeup to us so we could evaluate that further? I would think the attendance piece could be positively affected.
It could, some of the neighboring districts, this has been their first year.
Right.
So we don't have, data, from prior years, but those are the same questions that we're asking as well. When we do a study of this, those will we will be reaching out to districts that have implemented this model for more information.
Is there attendance data? Like we have our attendance data year to year and we see what things impact us. Is that information public on other schools? Or would they have to give that to us out of gratis?
It
High
should,
level, the
high level,
overall
it would be a
average
high
is
level.
probably
Enough to make a reasonably,
the
Mhm.
yearly average. I don't know that they would have data publicly that reflects like Fridays and after a break. That's not as
but I
easily
mean, would it be
available.
enough to be able to see if it would, establish a trend and or an impact? Do you think? I mean,
It just depends. If we don't have any longitudinal data, that's the challenge. If some of the research or articles that I personally read, it just varies. It really varies upon the district. And a lot of those are not Texas districts, they're districts in other states. Attendance, I just don't know if there's really hard data on that yet.
Pretty massive surgery, massive amount of change that we would need to really understand the logistics around. I would also personally have a question about the impacts of special education students that thrive on routine and a certain amount of consistency to the amount of instruction that they're getting over a period of time.
I was curious, in the ones that are doing it, how long does that day last? Do you happen to know? Like, I know it's based on minutes and all this. I'm asking
maybe these are things that.
I think we're going to be able to come back to you with answers to some of these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I was even a little hesitant about putting even pros and cons out there because this is not hard. This is just what, we have just done some really light research on it, but that's what we're hoping we can bring more information and data back to
The
you.
discussion this evening is really simply to share with you that our master schedules represent some of our most precious resources. Obviously, the time our children spend learning and how that time's arranged. And then, of course, our educators and how we arrange that time. And then tied up in that, because 83% of our budget is personnel, is that money. And so if we're looking at impact on finances, and then also at the same time, wanting to make sure we retain and support highly effective teachers and recruit highly effective teachers, we ensure that high quality educational experience. This is something we have to look at. And we're simply saying this evening, these are some different models we're going to start digging into, working with our administrators to do that research and bring forward that data in the future.
Block scheduling, it could be, we could better utilize our facilities and then gain instructional minutes. Possible negative impact, it can be more costly because teachers are seeing fewer kids sometimes for longer periods of time on that. So it's inconsistency for students. There would definitely be a training component for our staff that we would have to invest in by shifting to a block schedule. And then again, negative impact on teacher staff recruitment. I don't see that it would add actually more planning time for our teachers. It would still kind of be the status quo. And that if I can share anything that we are hearing from staff, it's that they need more time. And really, when you think about it, if we're able to dedicate more time, teachers will be able to collaborate and dedicate more time. And you've seen evidence of that through some of the presentations through our celebration of learning. Your quality of instruction is only going to improve. Not that, be better than it even is right now. So. Extended, if we shifted some of the days in the calendar to be planning days for staff and not an instructional day, it would, again, it's added that planning time for staff. Could possibly improve student attendance if they had some days built in to where they could schedule appointments on those days. or if families wanted to take a long weekend or travel, that could allow for that. Possible improvement with teacher staff recruitment. Pretty much it's more of a status quo with revenue. Wouldn't really change our revenue, but it could be possibly a childcare issue if you added. So an example might be you might add an additional planning day every 9-week period or every 6-week period. So that's what we mean by where students would have a day out of instruction and teachers would be planning. So.
Compared to ours, do we know the information? Is that something we can look at as well? Because I can.
Absolutely. Mhm. So next steps, as Katie was talking about, of where we can dig deeper into this and come back to you with more additional information, is that we will establish a staff, kind of an internal stakeholder scheduling committee that would it would involve some of our teachers. So we would have representation from departments, from campuses, cabinet members, and also our campus administrators. That committee will be establishing a timeline in order to bring forward some of the recommendations. And then also the committee will be looking at how can we set up systems for feedback and input from community, from parents, from students. So that's what we're planning on to beginning the work with our principals and get going on it. So any questions about scheduling, master scheduling?
Thank you, Dr. Tinsley. So just to revisit how this folds into the entire budget development process for 23-24, we'll continue analyzing these areas, and in January, we'll be working on the zero-based budget process internally, while we're also beginning to plan for capital planning and then bringing forward additional items in the budget workshops that we have at every regular board meeting throughout the remainder of the development process. So at this point, we have no further information to share unless you have any questions.
We said we had all of these things we're considering: attendance, enrollment, staffing, compensation. So scheduling, we just spoke about, and the programs and the fees would come at a future budget workshop.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Item 14 tonight is consider and act on the board legislative advocacy priorities and charter. So if you all recall, November 28th meeting, we had our folks who we appointed to serve on our legislative committee present to us, and was very pleased with the output and the work that they put into that. And we've had time to review and think through these things. So we had 5 priorities that were established as far as our legislative priorities. One was adequately funding public schools, address the cost and transparency of recapture, provide sufficient resources to recruit and retain teachers, expand funding for safety, security, and mental health, and preserve local control to support unique needs of the community. So as you've reviewed, we began to get ready tonight to hopefully put this committee to work officially. Do you have any comments or input about those things that you want to share before we move forward?
I think all of these are extremely valuable and important. I think to make sure we make some good traction, I feel like we should really pull up 1 or 2 that we can communicate to our community that could be a really driving force. I think we've kind of established what we know those are. So I know there'll be more communication forthcoming. So this probably isn't the document that's gonna be the end all to speak to the community, but I think in order to be heard and to be able to send a real strong message of change, we probably should lift up what we think are probably 1 or 2 of the most important movement items that we think they could take action on sooner than later. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, one thing I'll share, Amy, to that point is in our deliberations within the committee, we want to make sure that we're trying to structure this in a way to be effective, right? And that's, we're not just forming committees and having meetings to have meetings. We're wanting to try to, and one thing we've talked about is probably moving from a detailed 5 priority list to maybe a more concise one pager, if you will, that has more of a bullet point that could be useful for people that are, I mean, this is only going to be effective if the community becomes involved, right? We've got to make it, it's not going to be easy. That's not the right word, but we've got to make it easy for people to know what they're wanting to speak to. And so we might end up with something that's a detailed document like this for people that want to dig deep into the weeds on items. And then we might have something that's more concise that has some things that someone could go and meet with their legislators or any other policy people they're talking to, or other members of the community, and really have some talking points. So we've talked about that. So more to come.
Perfect, yeah.
If that's kind of
Yeah.
in line with what you're thinking about. So
We really did debate like short versus long,
Yeah.
more versus less.
so I think
so-
we're going to a both type
Yeah.
of approach.
Yeah,
We'll
perfect,
Provide both.
perfect.
And
So we're establishing short and long-term goals. We're gonna work on things we can affect now and things we want to plant seeds for in the future. So along those same lines, I might ask that, we're obviously kicking this thing off tonight, but a couple of proactive asks would be to establish those short-term things where, as we kick this off, we can have a call to action to our community to help advocate. That's one of the things the community is wanting to do. I know through discussions through our coffee talks, it's been apparent. It's one of the things that came up. They're excited about it. It's all positive feedback. And so would ask that we appropriately, but as soon as possible, have a practical application of their ability to advocate, whether it's pre-form letters with points or things of that nature, probably that plus more. I know you're probably thinking about this, just to verbalize that to you all here tonight. And then, yeah, but I agree with all the work being excellent thus far, and to try and narrow down on what you just described, short and long term.
Yeah, 2 things we're doing on that front. One, and it's within our kind of charter document, a big piece of what we're doing. It's not necessarily priorities for the district, but a piece of how we're organizing is really tapping into any other resources that are out there within third-party organizations or other school districts that have already further along in their organization around advocacy. So we're going to be putting together some, I know in the last meeting you had asked for a calendar, right? One thing, we're meeting with a third-party organization this week that is involved in advocacy, and we're going to be looking towards, okay, not trying to reinvent the wheel, but putting together timelines on, and to your point, if there's a letter campaign that we can do that can help be turnkey specific to our priorities and things of that nature, and figuring out how to organize quickly within the community to be effective. And it's not just about this upcoming legislative session that starts in January. It really is putting the process and procedures in place to have this be an ongoing organization. So those are all the things we're talking about. And after the meeting this week that we have, I think we'll have some more detailed what's coming in a timeline for you, probably in our next update.
We had discussed kind of streamlining these, maybe getting a fact sheet together. You do speak with your representatives, you're able to talk about the great things about Lovejoy and kind of our demographic and where we're located and that sort of thing. And so we'll have versions of that coming out for us. And to address, I want to agree with the fact that I think those stories about how this impacts Lovejoy and what in real dollar terms are really powerful. And so I just wanted to say thank you to the administration who's going to be helping us pull that data together.
Yeah, and Jason, to the points that have been raised, this is kind of the overarching approval of the umbrella. And then a lot of these things that are on this priority list, a lot of these bullets here, this description will become more talking points. You know, we'll have something that we'll call the leave behind, you know, with respect to priorities, but it'll be condensed from what this is. And then, you know, kind of, we wanted to kind of initially begin with a top 2 or a top 3 priorities, but then we also realize the persuasive benefit of hitting keywords and key events that are going on in the state that are going to take up a lot of the legislature's time with things like and like school safety and security. That's a very big topic and a very important topic, but it also pertains to funding with respect to, making sure we don't have unfunded mandates. And if there's allotments and increases in funding for safety concerns, that hopefully that legislators will be like, oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But it also affects the bottom line because we may be, I think we are in a better place than some districts are already with respect to safety and security and our protocols and our staff. But, that doesn't mean we don't want the allotments that might be coming out at the state level for those things. So, big priorities, big ticket, big issue items, and then also throwing in some things that are basically in the news that are important across the state and that will grab attention.
I was gonna add, as y'all get kind of the one pager and everything, you may already know all the legislative reps. If not, I can help facilitate that with PTO. Every campus has one. And the beauty of the high school is it's a PTSO, so there's student members. So like to what Ms. Campbell said, we have kids in those meetings every month. So if we get to a point where we want to have testifying and things like that, we have student leaders on our board that either could do that for us or find kids to do that. So I think that could be powerful. Again, just let me know when we're ready for that and I can help facilitate.
And, the session kicks off on January 10th. It's going to be a long, extended session, into the spring and maybe up to the rest of the spring semester. And then every year for the past couple of sessions, there's been a special session in the summer as well. And so what we want to do is we're starting broad. And I think there's already been something, I'm going to throw out a number, I'm probably off on it, but at least 180 plus education bills that have already been pre-filed in advance of the legislature. I'll be completely honest, I've started to work my way through those, but not all of them. And a lot of them are pretty boilerplate and don't have a lot of detail to them. But what we envision the legislative committee being able to do at future board meetings is kind of paring things down into bill numbers, bills that have made it out of committee in either the House Ed or the Senate Ed, so that we can put our advocacy efforts behind specific bills that address, that reflect our priorities. So I expect this thing's going to evolve over the next 6 months and go from a broad form kind of, issue-based discussion to specifics. And we'll be asking community members to and our legislatures to support specific bills that have advanced out of committee and are being scheduled for vote.
So you covered my other 2 points that I wanted to have as goals for this kickoff in this year, which is 1, to know which bills we want to affect or advocate for, 1, and 2, for us to affect testimony directly from our efforts from our community students and our board at the state level out of this effort that we're making in the near term, like this session. I'm hoping that we can bring that to fruition through our efforts. So those are my other 2 points or goals that I wanted to see us establish and affect the outcome of. So I know it's a big ask and I'm thankful you guys are doing it and I can tell you have passion for it, and through the quality of the work you've done thus far, we appreciate that as well. So.
Dated a financial stat in the middle of the page. Otherwise it is the same.
With that.
I move we act and approve on the board legislative advocacy priorities and charter.
Second.
And thanks for the work you've done thus far. A lot of energy from the community around that as well. So I want to engage that. So leading right into the coffee talks and some of the discussions that we had, off from that, it was a very timely and effective effort that we had that I think overall was extremely positive for both the community and the administration and the board. And Katie, if you want to add anything to the discussion there, based on your observations.
So grateful to have so many community members and parents come out. We are incredibly fortunate to have that level of involvement. It was great to see a lot of familiar faces, but also some new faces too, to engage in a two-way dialogue.
So with that, the desire I have to do that longer term is extremely high. I think some of you all have voiced that as well, but I want to talk about that. My ask would be that we try to do some two-way interface through coffee talks or meetings at least once quarterly. And that we do it in you guys have talked about, we've talked about as a board with our legal counsel about posting that. I don't want to lose the intimacy of the discussion. I don't want to sacrifice that because it's what the community, I think it's where we can, one, bridge the gap between trust and confidence and truly talk where we can't conversate in these board meetings. We just have to make sure, no matter how we do it, that we're not preempting actions we're going to take in a board meeting or creating a circumstance where we handcuff ourselves. And so the community, I also would say, was very mature and respectful and enjoyable to communicate with. And we were able to really cover a lot of good ground, quite frankly. So my ask would be that we do these quarterly and we can start as soon as we would like. Other than that, the semantics of how we do it, whatever we can do to refine it to make it better and more effective, I'm all on board with. But I think doing it on a regular basis where we can be proactive with the schedule would allow for the best outcomes. So that's my suggestion.
I don't see any downside.
So unless there's other proposals, then we could kick it off with a quarterly schedule. And we can refine as we need to, but that would get us started.
Sounds good.
So with that, we would need a motion to do such.
That we prepare a quarterly calendar of coffee talks and publish it
And post for everyone.
and post for everyone to attend.
Second. Motion by Julie, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, item 16 is our cabinet reports. Feel like we just had those.
That's why it'll be a little briefer than normal. So just a couple of minor updates. We've covered all of the financial updates more in the budget workshop and conversation. But just a couple operations items. We have been looking at potential changes to the signage here in this facility. And so we did get a quote back from a vendor. And so we'll be reviewing that and seeing if that design is acceptable and looking at making some changes there. So it's much more visible to our community and the wayfinding is easier for folks to figure out where they need to go and how to get there. Unfortunately, the Puster playground is still in progress. Playground equipment is so hard to come by these days. So they've pushed it back from December to February, March timeframe in terms of equipment arrival. But we'll be prepared to get started on that as soon as it does arrive. Other than that, we did post the director of technology position. We've had several inquiries about that. And so we're looking at those applicants and we'll be looking at filling that position in the coming month or so. But that's kind of more on the operation side. I would also like to thank Jeff and Devin for all of their support in technology. They are both here this evening. And so I think that helps tremendously for us to have multiple folks in our technology department who can help us facilitate these meetings. And so I want to say how much I appreciate them. And that is all I have for you this evening, unless you have any further questions. Okay,
you've heard, we've shared with you this year during some of our board meetings about some of the investments that we've done in developing leaders in this district. We talked about the Deloitte Institute, but we took our campus principals too. We do have another round of leaders that are going to be able to go to that institute again in February, and then hopefully we'll have another level 2 next spring. But we do have an in-house training that we do here throughout the year called our instructional leadership team. We call it the ILT. What is the ILT? It's made up of our district leaders, it's principals, it's cabinet members, it's department leaders, anything related to instruction. Our athletic director, Chris Ross, is on it, and so is fella Matthew from Fine Arts. So the purpose is to really spend time to where we're learning together and growing as leaders. We generally meet about 6 times per year. And it's focused on developing and refining our leadership skills. As I've shared before, that it's the impact of a leader on student achievement is only second to teacher quality. So we've got to keep growing as well too, and investing in ourselves. It allows for collaboration where we can get together. It's helping us align practices, learning about what's going on beyond our department or beyond our campus. And it allows for us to do some strategic thinking and problem solving. And we've been doing a lot of that, this past year. But I wanted to share what we did at a recent ILT meeting, is that we focused on we're looking at a learning organization, and the focus area has been driven by how do we build as leaders, how are we engaging and focusing our interactions with staff and our teachers to ensure that we're producing a productive climate, a healthy climate for our staff. We're really facilitating collaboration, whether it be through our professional learning communities, whether it's serving on stakeholder groups where we're bringing teacher voice around the table, and how we are managing our personnel and our resources strategically. So what we focused on was systems thinking, and you probably have seen some insight on this on what we've been doing. You do this as a board. We look at what's going well, what's working in our schools and our departments, and then what's not working in our schools and departments. And so we really looked at where are there barriers to our success? Are there, what's the mental model of the stakeholders within the group? What's the belief system? What are some opportunities for growth and innovation? And that's the exciting part of this, is because we do see so many opportunities for the innovation here to build on that in Lovejoy. And then what are our perspectives that we need to bring to the table through that leadership work? And so I'm just going to share here some systems thinking. This was an example of a tool that we used recently, to where as a leader, you looked at a possible event or a problem that was occurring on your campus. And then you kind of worked through the iceberg to look at what were the causes, what were the trends, has it been occurring over time? What are some of the structures that are influencing that? So for example, last year we could look at, when we were looking at master scheduling, we identified some barriers, we identified some trends that maybe we needed to stop doing so that we could be more efficient with our staffing models through our scheduling. And then where do we get to the design and the transformational work? So we felt like this is a good way to go. And I mean, in not just in the school business, but in business models too. This is what great leaders do. They think strategically, they plan, they bring stakeholders around the table as appropriate. Sometimes it's not necessary, but this is just a little bit of an insight of the work that we do in developing leaders here in Lovejoy. So. Okay.
Good evening. It's been a great first semester, or almost ending first semester in special education. And so I just wanted to highlight a few things that's been going on, not only at the district level, but also partnering with our campus administrators. So we send out weekly communication to all of our case managers, which means that's our special education teachers as well as our campus administrators. And sometimes there are items that are pulled through that are questions or timeliness of events that are coming up, that staff just to help keep it on their radar. And definitely the feedback that we've received so far is just having it there in a one-stop shop and looking at based off input from the campuses or new information that we're getting either from TEA or any changes from any of the legal pathways that govern special education. When we come across some training that Region 10 or other entities may be offering, we make sure we put that in there. Again, the campus administrator can decide if that's a good pathway for some of the staff on their campus. We try to highlight staff. We do share their staff that are itinerant. So for example, our adaptive PE teacher serves students on all campuses. And so if you do not have someone that currently is receiving services through adaptive PE, you may wonder, who is this lady on the campus? She has a badge and everything, but we definitely want to make sure that we're highlighting the fabulous work that's being done. Guest educator, we were hoping that Anna and I were going to be able to share a celebration from our December 2nd guest educator training, and we made the decision, which was the right decision, because on that day, looking ahead, there were 70 absences, and we felt like the 20 participants that were going to be coming to our training really needed to be on campuses and support the instruction that was happening. So we do have a new date, which is January 12th. Right now, we have 20 people signed up, but I know HR is working really hard to onboard new guest educators, and definitely our principals have given us feedback, just appreciative of not only on the special education side of the house, but they're also seeing that impact on the general education side of the house. So we'll have an update in January on what, how many and how did the day go. Our action team, so just a reminder, last year when we did a program review for special education, we had an action team that we pulled together, and really majority of the staff that were part of that were general education staff members. We had representation from GT, and we did have some representation from special education, and we set forth some goals. And so the team actually will meet on Wednesday, December 14th, because I was not paying attention. I'll still work on Friday, but everyone else is going home on Thursday. And so we wanted to make sure that we let them get out at a good time. So we're going to actually be meeting this Wednesday, and just where are we at on the goals? What does that look like on their campus? How can we support? What are the celebrations? How do they see the impact from the instructional coaches that are supporting what's happening? So we'll have a future follow-up for the board to give details on really how the goals are moving forward for the action team. And then looking at our community, and really when I say that, that's not just our Lovejoy community, but it's also internal and our staff. And so just a reminder of some of the things that we're either have done or will continue to be doing. We had Sage Coffees, and we had the great opportunity to visit all campuses. We definitely have left ourselves open to any of the Sage reps on any items moving forward that they need our expertise in, or resources that we can help support the work that's going on at each campus. We do send a monthly disability awareness PowerPoint, I guess, like Google Slides is what they are, but that way to continue to get the information out that was important to the Sage reps, that we're continuing to build capacity, because if you or your family have not walked the path, whether it's a medical condition or a disability through special education, you may not know really some of the pathways that people or the families are walking through. So we want to definitely continue to build that muscle. Our action team is the one that I just mentioned. And so again, I will follow back up. We'll probably have some of the action team members come back like they did last year and speak to the work that they've been doing. We're getting ready to send out another edition of the Special Education Parent Connect newsletter. Actually, our Bright Arrow, which as a parent, all of the notifications from Lovejoy ISD, that's Bright Arrow. And it's been really nice to be able to connect with our parents. So for example, there is some funding that the state of Texas received during the time of COVID. And it's a one-time amount that parents who might have a student who receives services through special education can tap into that money. And so really looking about what our percentage was in the district, and we knew that we still had some parents who may not have either known about it or
you get a lot in their inbox. So I just sent something out exclusively to the parents to be able just to remind them, because you can use it on school supplies, you can use it on electronics, you can also use it on therapy. So definitely you had some different pathways. So Bright Arrow's been a nice way just for us to share. But we did get some information from our Special Education Advisory Committee of finding a couple of different pathways outside of Bright Arrow to send information out. So we will also continue to keep doing that, where we'll give it to our campus principals and our SAGE reps to make sure information is going out, kind of a broadband. Hopefully we can touch multiple parents if they're not reading their emails, but they notice this is a message from Lovejoy ISD, if we can help get the word to them. The curriculum instruction one, we as a department planned a ton of stuff for the last leadership Lovejoy, and a lot of great work and presentations took place on that day. And so we did not get through everything from all of the programs, including special education, but we are looking at future leadership Lovejoy opportunities to be able to pull that through, and especially while we're on some of the campus, potentially to see some of the things in action that's happening. And then our Special Education Advisory Committee, we meet back on February 8th. And the two areas that the committee targeted was one on understanding the ARD process for parents. And so we're working with a outside agency to come in and be able to provide that to the parents. And then the second piece was just student pathways. So whether it's special education or a parent has a concern and it may be down the pathway of 504 or our MTSS PST process, making sure parents are aware of that there's a variety of pathways that may be able to support if they have concerns for their students. So that will be another piece that we'll be looking at. How do we implement that? There are some other items that were targeted, but we knew looking at second semester, what could be feasible to make sure that we provide quality. And then the things that we don't get to look at continuing to build ways. One of them, just for example, one was the difference between educational occupational therapy and medical model occupational therapy. Well, that's not going to necessarily require a workshop, but could we create some communication that would help parents understand that? So we'll keep working towards that, but they've been a great group. Just as a reminder, we have parents on that group. We have staff members. Holly is our campus administrator on there. So it's a nice mix of parents from all campuses to be able to provide input.
I wanted to compliment you on the pathways.
Mhm.
I think in the past, there was the misinformation that Lovejoy was all about the AP student. And I think we're working really hard to make sure it's not a one size fits all. It's whatever that path is for that kid to best fit what they need.
Sure.
So I love that you're doing that, because every kid is so unique and it's not just AP or, whatever. So, thank you. I think that's really good.
And if AP is the route, then what's really the support that we need to put in place to make that doable for them? So absolutely, we definitely want to individualize and support where students are at. Last but definitely not least, Special Olympics, we have been practicing. So student athletes practice at the campus, but we also go off-site. We've been partnering with the Allen Bowl. We actually have competition set for January 13th. It's the Schulmer's Bowl that's right off the Highway 75 in Sherman. So it's a pretty nice venue, but we're already getting ready for basketball. So our coaches will go through their training because they have to be certified to be able to coach. They will actually receive that on January 2nd, and then we'll start working on practices. And as soon as we get competitions secured, we'll make sure that we share that information, because that definitely is such a highlight to be able to see our students showcase their athletic abilities. They also get to work on a ton of skills that they've been working on in the classroom and generalize that. And then the partnership that we have with PALS is amazing, because there's so much that both our student athletes and our students who are in PALS learn and grow from one another. It's really a nice partnership that we're able to do. So more information to come. Questions?
Good evening, everyone. And now for my update. First of all, we've talked a lot about teacher shortage and all those types of things. And as we get into, it's hard to believe, but as we move into next year and we start talking about hiring, our number one priority is always retention. We want to retain the teachers that are here and support them any way and every way we can, because we know that's how we grow our own, we build our own. And so the first thing I want to talk about is just staff engagement, how important it is for us, not only as administrators and the cabinet but the HR department, to engage in our staff and know we're there to support them, whether it be FMLA, ADA, also mentoring them, growing them, building their capacity, answering questions. That's really important to us, is to be engaged with them. We also want to talk about staff appreciation, because we know that culture of appreciation, that alone, those efforts, that is positively impacting retention for our staff. So we're wanting to do anything we can to let them know and to recognize them for the important things, for, and I think we do a really great job of doing that, just for Heart of Teacher, trying to, social media, connect with Katie, all those important things. I'm glad that we're having our celebrations of learning, because we're celebrating those teachers that are teaching the classroom that may not be a coach or something special, but they're that classroom teacher that's very valued. The new hire introductions that we do. Of course, we also want to bring that fun and parties and those types of things. I don't know if y'all know, but Cordell on the Bell is still going around. It is currently at Heart. And y'all will see Miss Cordell's, I bought her an elf outfit that she'll be wearing. You'll see a picture of that here soon. So anyway, but we've had a lot of fun with that. Yeah, it's all fun. Yeah, we've had a good time with it. So anyway, the teachers have had a good time with it. So also just recognizing the importance of our guest educators too, and refining that process, getting them in here quickly, providing training for them, but making them feel that they're part of our staff. We've also heard back when we're doing strategic planning a lot about staff voice and the importance of staff voice. And so I think it was important that we did have people and teachers represent us on different committees, advisory committees, the superintendent teacher council, those types of things, and continuing to do some of those things that let them know that we're listening to them and we want to do whatever we can to support them. And then we talked about out of district, just continuing, we get a lot of questions about out of district employees doing transfers and making sure that everyone's aware of that, growing our own teachers, and whether it be leadership, anything for all. We have taken this idea, as Dr. Tinsley shared with ILT, just professional development for everyone and how important that is. But once again, retention is our number one priority. We know we're going to have to recruit in certain areas, but we developed a plan for that, because we want to get ahead of the game here. Tonight you approved 5 T-class residents at the board, and those were on the new hire list. Those are our teachers that will be here. Well, they're like student teachers. They're residents that will be here from January to December this next year. So we want to see how they're going to do and fit into our culture. We get a lot of calls also, what we call pre-service teachers, those that need hours. For example, before they go into education, they have to have 30 hours of service in a public school. And we're going to do everything we can to provide those internships and provide support. So we get a lot of candidates that way. Career fairs, visited college that produce the most candidates. I know I pulled up just some that I had participated in before. For example, I am an Aggie, so I just pulled up to see how many participate, and last spring they actually had, in the past they had close to 700 participants from their College of Education. At the spring job fairs last year, they had almost 400, which was pretty good. So maybe some of those that have a lot of applicants we could visit. I know there's a lot of changes, and I'm sure you've read about them at OU and in Oklahoma. And so that might be a couple of other colleges that we look at, but spending some time recruiting there. Future educator seminars, and we get invited a lot. I know I've helped future teachers, write resumes, coach, helping them interview, talk about what principals look for, where we visited college campuses. I know I've done Sam Houston, North Texas, TMUC, and that we pass out our cards and say, come talk to us. So we're gonna do some of those types of things. And then as far as the human resources, I think the biggest thing that has impacted us more, and I never thought it would, is just streamlining the application process. We're using those QR codes, and that's where we're getting the most traffic. So usually when they fill out that form, we have a preliminary conversation. We call them immediately. We offer support with the application process because that can somewhat be overwhelming. And one thing that we noticed, we pulled a data on the video screener. And back when we had thousands and thousands of applicants, that was great because it was really a screener. Now we're calling everyone because we don't have thousands of applicants. And so that was actually holding people up from completing the application. So they weren't submitting it because they had to do the video screener. And we all know we can be hesitant with that when we're videoing. It basically gives you a question and you have a minute and a half to answer. So we're doing more of a hands-on approach there, sending references immediately and reviewing those. And then we've already set some tentative job fair dates for February, April, and June for both professional and auxiliary staff. We'll probably do the Saturday, like we did kind of the job through. I felt like great success with that. We've got about 7 or 8 applicants there, and I think 5 or 6 were actually hired there. We did host an alternative certification night where we had someone come in and that's for those people that have college degrees that may not be in teaching. We had, I believe, 6 come. We had 2 fill out the form that are interested in becoming what we call alt-cert teachers. And the organization we were working with gave them a discount, which was nice also for them. We're also, a big thing was training our guest educators in-house. I don't know if y'all knew this. I did not know this, but here in Lovejoy, y'all had them go to Region 10 and they had to pay $90 and complete a course before they became a guest educator. And that was holding our guest educators from being hired. So just by doing it in-house and providing supports that impact our districts, that has made a big change. And of course, reaching out on social media and also looking at the District of Innovation and what we can do to help support teachers. And that District of Innovation is a way to get teachers certified and a non-traditional route there. So just some things that we're doing. So there'll be many other things, but we feel like we need a plan as we head into this next hiring season there. Questions?
Hey, I just have a few things that I'd like to share with you. The first in student services is we have a young lady at the high school, Simi Fidel, who has qualified as a National Young Artist finalist. Many of you were out at the Fine Arts Festival last week, and you probably got to see some of her work, and it's incredible. So what this means for Simi is she'll have the opportunity to travel to Miami in January. She'll be able to study with 150 other finalists in this category with some professional artists for an entire week. And that will qualify her. I have to read this. It will qualify her and make her eligible to be a nominee for the U.S. Presidential Scholar in the Arts, which, if you'll remember, is the same award that Ella Ray won last year. So she'll be eligible for that. So we're really happy for Simi. And it's so funny. You have these talented kids who are so humble in what they do. You know, during the arts festival, she could have been going around showing people her art, but she was doing what everybody else was doing. She was posting art. She was helping the little kids out there, and she just loves to be a part of the entire process. And it's great to see her be able to work with some of the younger kids and show her passion for what she does, and hopefully pass that passion down to some of our younger artists that are coming through our programs as well. You guys know that our girls cross country team qualified for the Nike National Championships in Portland, Oregon. They traveled there last week. I think Casey is getting the benefit of this whole thing. He gets to travel and he uses the excuse that his wife is the coach and his daughter runs, but I think he's doing that just so he can get some travel throughout the country on this deal. But no, it was a great experience for the kids. They placed 14th in the nation. And this is not, I don't know how many teams competed, but this is not a situation where you place 14th and there are 100 teams. Every team there were really highly competitive, really talented runners. And for our girls to place 14th in the country is really, really impressive. So we're extremely proud of them. And just a recap of the 2022 Fine Arts Festival. We have Dr. Matthew here, as you know, as our Director of Fine Arts, and the product that she puts out each and every year, she's not going to take much credit for it, but the planning and the execution of this event to put on all of the different events that go on, making sure that every student in our K-12 either has their work, their a piece of artwork displayed, or they're performing in front of their peers, in front of their families, and then being able to look up. I think the most gratifying thing about this is seeing the grandparents who come and see their grandchildren perform for the very first time. And it doesn't matter if they're kindergartners or they're seniors in high school, but to see the smile on their face and the pride that they have in their grandchild being able to perform is just, and of course the talent that goes on. If you've heard our a cappella that we heard tonight, the talent that our kids are able to display is incredible. So we have a lot of things to be proud of, a lot of things to be thankful for. And one is our Fine Arts Department. Again, I want to thank Dr. Matthew for her leadership in that department, because it does not go unnoticed. So thank you.
Festival is amazing every year. When I was there both for a couple of things, Friday and Saturday, and on Friday night, I ran into a high school student I know that was there, and I asked her if she was performing. She said no, she was a pal that was there just to watch her pal. So that was pretty cool to see too. To give up a Friday night as a high school student to go support your pals, pretty cool.
Ms. Cordell.
Yes, there are only 2.5 days, class parties and some semester exams standing between our students and their holiday break. And you can feel it in the air, but really it's been a wonderful semester. And I just want to thank our teachers, our staff, our parents for the incredible job that they have done providing excellent learning experiences for our students and extracurricular experiences. It's been an amazing semester, and now it's time for everybody to take care of themselves, rest, relax, reconnect with the ones that they love the most, and have some high quality family time. So we wish everybody a very safe and a very joyful winter break.
Thank you very much. Do we have any non-agenda comments tonight? Thank you. I would just echo Ms. Cordell's comments of wishing you all an amazing holiday break. Enjoy your time, and we would be adjourned.